Hello friends, welcome to channel. I am Ashish, medical at GMC Madhya Pradesh, and this video I will be telling you about the cranial nerves and its embryology part. So we will have an introduction to the cranial nerves and see what are its actually precursors in the earlier part of the development of the embryo. So as you know, the nervous system is divided into two parts. We have cranial nervous system and we have peripheral nervous system. Cranial nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord, and peripheral nervous system consists of the nerve fibers that arise from the central nervous system. So the fibers that arise from the central nervous system, that's included in the peripheral nervous system, which is again divided into two. The fibers that supplies the visceral organs which we can control comes under the somatic, and rest other comes in the autonomic nervous system. So the somatic nervous system consists of the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. We have 12 pairs of cranial nerves and 31 pairs of spinal nerves. We'll see about the 12 pairs of cranial nerves in this playlist in detail. So as the cranial nerves are the part of the peripheral nervous system, they will arise from the CNS. So CNS, they will arise from the CNS and hence called the peripheral nervous system. So the 12 pairs of cranial nerves arise from the different parts of the brain, not the spinal cord but the brain. Okay, so brain also we have three parts. We have forebrain, we have midbrain, and we have hindbrain. So different nerves, we have 12 pairs, means around 24. They arise from different parts of the brain. In brain also we have certain classifications. For the forebrain, the first two cranial nerves or the first two pairs of cranial nerves arise from the midbrain, the third and fourth. In the hindbrain also we have some parts like pons, medulla, cerebellum, but from the pons, the concern is from the pons, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th arise, and the remaining 4, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th arise from the medulla part. The exact origin from the brainstem, see this midbrain, pons and medulla are together called the brainstem, and the exact position where they arise we'll discussing when we discuss about the brainstem, and when we are quite aware of the different regions or locations that are present in the brainstem. Now it's very clear, we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves that arise from the brain. But what are their functions? So what is the basic function of a cranial nerve? A cranial nerve serves two basic functions. Either they will carry impulses from the central nervous system to the peripheral nervous system or the effectors, or they will receive impulses from the periphery and transmit it to the central nervous system. So they do two functions. Either they send impulses or receive impulses. When they send impulses, they are said to have motor function. Okay, or when they receive impulses, they are said to have the sensory function. Now let us see how this motor and the sensory component of cranial nerves actually develop in the embryo and what are their further subdivisions. So let's talk about the embryology part. So in the embryology, these diagrams might seem quite difficult for you to understand, but trust me, we are going to discuss each detail of the diagram. But first let us concentrate on the thing that we already know. As you know about the formation of the neural tube that we have already discussed in the part of the development of the brain, whose video you can check on the I button. Okay, we have already discussed about the development of the brain. In that we discussed about the development of the neural tube. So this is neural tube. If you make a cross section of the neural tube and see how it's actually present, then you will be able to see the orientation of the cells. You will be surprised to see the neural tube. This small neural tube itself consists of 3 layers. So it comes inside, if you see a cross section, it is made up of 3 layers like this. The innermost layer, the green color that you see over here, is the ependymal. The middle one is the mantle, and the outer one is called the marginal. Okay, the marginal layer forms the white matter or the axons. The mantle forms the gray matter. Okay, we have 3 layers in the neural tube. First, the innermost is the ependymal. Then middle we have the marginal, and the outermost we have the middle mantle, and the outermost we have the marginal. Mantle forms the gray matter and marginal forms the white matter. But the mantle layer then again get divided into two parts. We have got a ventral part and a dorsal part. So this is also cross section of a development spinal cord, that's a lower part of the neural tube, in which you can see it has a ventral part. This side is the ventral side and this side is the dorsal side. in that part you can see the mental part. This is the mental part which is divided into two. We have the ventral and the dorsal. The ventral part is all called the ventral is called the basal lamina, and dorsal is called the alar lamina or lamina. Okay, so the mental layer divides into two. Suppose this was the mental layer that divided into two. We have ventral basal lamina and a dorsal which lamina, alar lamina on each side. Okay, and they are separated by a sulcus limitans. So this is the central canal or the central part of the cross section, which you can see the projection over here. This is called the sulcus limitans. So they are separated by the sulcus limitans that we have discussed just now. So this is the part of the developing neural tube of the lower part. See, neural tube, suppose this is neural tube. This part will form the brain and all this rest of the structure, and lower part will form the spinal cord. So this is a cross section of the lower part of the neural tube, and this is a cross section of the upper part of the neural tube. In this you can see the alar lamina or the dorsal side forms the sensory part. We have seen the functions of cranial nerves as to send impulses or receive impulses, that is motor function or sensory function. So alar lamina is responsible for the sensory function, and basal lamina, this part ventral basal lamina, is responsible for the motor function. Okay, now in this if you see the development again in the later part, what happens, this alar lamina consists of two parts. That's, see, it has sensory function. In that also we have two subdivision, that is the somatic sensory and visceral sensory. And same in the case of the motor part also, we have got visceral motor and the sensory motor. Now you can see the orientation of the sensory in the motor part. In the case of the spinal cord, the sensory part is located dorsal and the motor part is located ventrally. Motor part also we have sensory motor and the visceral motor, and the sensory part also we have sensory, somatic sensory and the visceral sensory. So it is somatic sensory, somatic motor and the visceral motor. Visceral motor supplies the viscera which has a motor function, and the somatic motor supplies all the somatic organs. So you can see the orientation. The orange color somatic sensory part is located most posteriorly or dorsally, and the somatic motor part is situated more anteriorly or in the anterior horn. So as you know, posterior horn is concerned with the sensory function, and the ventral horn or the anterior horn is concerned with the motor function. This is of the somatic motor. In the posterior part we have the somatic sensory. In the lateral horn we have both, that is the visceral sensory and the visceral motor function. But there is orientation from anterior to posterior in the case of the spinal cord, but in the case of the cranial nerves, the orientation is from right to left or from lateral to medial. This is the sensory part which is located laterally and or along the sides, and the motor part is located in the central. So this was all the basics that you should know. This diagram tells about the orientation of the sensory and the motor components in the case of the spinal cord and the brainstem. The sensory component is located dorsally in the case of the spinal cord, and ventrally we have the motor component. In the case of the brainstem, in the lateral side we have the sensory component, in the central part we have the motor component. Now let's see, till now we have not discussed the 12 pairs of cranial nerves and their names. So let's move on to all the cranial nerves that are present in the body and have a look on their names. We have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. The first one is called olfactory, then optic, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, obducent, facial, auditory, glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory and hypoglossal. There is different trick to remember all these names. You can check out on the net, or I will tell you in the next video. Now we have to see which nerve is sensory, which is motor, and which nerve consists of both component, that is either it has both sensory and the motor component. So let me tell you, we have senses, that 5 senses that will perform the function of the sensory component of the sensory nerves. So olfactory, optic and the auditory are pure sensory. Olfactory is concerned with the smell, optic with vision and auditory with the hearing part. So olfactory is sensory, optic is sensory, and eighth is also pure sensory part. But we have certain nerves that are both sensory as well as the motor. So as you know, we have about 5 senses. So other sensory components or the mixed component include by the, we have 5, 7, 9 and 10 as the mixed nerves. 5 mixed, 7 mixed, 9 and 10. So these are the mixed nerves and rest are the motor nerves. Motor, trochlear is also motor, abducent is motor, then we have accessory motor, and hypoglossal is also motor. So how to remember this? See, sensory you can remember 1 to 8, and how to remember the mixed one? Pasand. 5, 5, 7, 9, 10, that is pasand. You can remember all the mixed nerves. Now we will see about the components of the cranial nerves. So as you know, cranial nerves can have either two functions, that is, it can have sensory or motor. Okay, sensory is also called afferent and motor is also called efferent. So sensory, again, see, if you have to take senses, we can either take senses from the either the somites or the somatic part or the visceral part, and you can send impulses or can give motor functions or actions for the visceral and the somatic. Suppose there is some signal to the organs for the carry on the function that are done by the visceral component of the motor part, and some movement of the hand is comes under the motor component via the somatic part. Okay, sensory also we have visceral sensation, the sensation of peristalsis or other different Golgi tendon or reflexes and other part that comes in the visceral, and sensation of smell that all come under the visceral part, and touch, pain, pressure comes under the somatic part. Okay, in the visceral also we have general and special. Special means the special 5 senses, and general means normal touch and pain of the viscera, and somatic also again we have got general and special, and so on. Okay, so we have to look on each part in detail and see which cranial nerves is concerned with the which function, specific function, and what are the components that are present in the each cranial nerve, that we'll see in the next video. So if you like the video, please hit the like button and do subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.